Welcome to the Dare to Begin Small and Mighty podcast, episode number 54. I'm excited about today's podcast episode. It is inspired by something that I'm going through myself right now, which is really practicing to lean into discomfort. I'm super excited for the topic, so let's jump right on in. I spent years building my interior design business, trying to do all the things: the marketing, the networking, the free content, spending thousands of dollars on training and education, only to see minimal growth. After years of frustration, I finally started to ask, what am I missing? I had the systems in place for powerful growth. I had amazing clients. I had determination, drive, and commitment to spare. And yet, I wasn't seeing the success I desired. What if business is not about the doing? What if building a powerful business requires both powerful systems and something else, something deeper? I'm Amy Van Meel, and I'm on a journey to discover that something else. If you are ready to build a powerful business and do it knowing that your success is inevitable, join me as I share both the powerful systems I know work and my lessons and revelations as I discover that something deeper. Welcome, Changemaker, to the Dare to Begin Small and Mighty podcast. Well, hey there, Changemaker. Amy here. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's a Friday here in my office. It's a Friday for you, maybe too. I don't know. But it's Friday here when I'm sitting down to record this with you. So thank you so much for joining me. I trust you're well. If it is in fact a Friday for you, I hope you've had a fantastic week and that you're looking forward to some kind of a joyful or relaxing or rejuvenating weekend. This weekend is going to be a short one for me. So I'm going to maximize the hell out of my relaxing tomorrow. I know it sounds funny to say that, but tomorrow I have a day planned for just doing nothing, to just chill out, because next week is going to be, the next few weeks are going to be a bit busy, and that is totally okay. So I appreciate you joining me in today. I want to give a very special shout out to Annika. Annika messaged me on Instagram this week and just sent me the most beautiful message. And I just want to say thank you for reaching out. Thank you for the words that you shared. And I just love hearing from you guys. So if you want to reach out to me, you definitely can. You can DM me on Instagram at I Dare to Begin. I'm always happy to hear from you. So feel free to do that. So before I jump into today, I just want to let you know that today's episode is being sponsored by the Profit Power Pack. If you are in the process of working with a bunch of clients or landing more clients and you want to increase the profitability of your business, I would encourage you to check out the Profit Power Pack, which is a training I've put together specifically to help you maximize the profitability of your business while serving your clients in the highest possible way. You can find out more by going to daretobegin.net/profit. Again, that's daretobegin.net/profit. And you can see a little bit more about what the course is about. So thank you so much for listening. Let's get into today's topic. So I was thinking a lot about what I wanted to talk about today. And it's been on my mind a lot, actually, too, there's a feeling in my head and I think it's just a talking to myself, that I feel like, Amy, you need to talk about more business things. And so here's what I'm going to say. If you are looking for something that is more specifically business related, is there a strategy that you're working on or something within your business, growing your business, starting your business that you're struggling with? I would encourage you to either message me on Instagram at I Dare to Begin or email me, amy@daretobegin.net, and send me your specifics. And then I can actually address those questions specifically because otherwise I keep it a bit more general, and that I want to make sure you're getting a phenomenal amount of content and value out of what I'm sharing in the podcast. So what I'm actually going to talk about today is not necessarily a business strategy, but is going to be super powerful both for your business and every area of your life, I think. So let me backtrack just a little bit. I've been working with a coach. I've talked about my coach a number of times, and she's phenomenal. I really, really enjoy working with a coach. We are in the middle of doing another big deep dive, her and I. I met with her about a week ago and I said, this is, there's this something I can feel. It's this big deal, whatever this is. I know it needs addressing. And so she sent me home with some homework for a couple of weeks. So, all right, cool. I'm off with my homework. Part of being able to really, get the most value out of our sessions and the value of this time to reflect and bring in some awareness into the topic that we're talking about requires me to practice a certain level of openness. And now here's what was interesting to me. I realized this week that I have been talking about being open. I do affirmations around being open. I think about it in my meditations. I talk about it with my coach. But I realized this week that I actually have not been truly practicing a true openness. Now, let me try to, as much as I can, clarify what I mean by that. In order to be open, we are in a state of vulnerability. So if you think about, something that's maybe a bit more relatable, like for example, being open with your family, maybe you're open with your family about your sexuality or your business choices, or I don't know, like where you want to go for vacation. Being open, telling people honestly, what you think or what you feel can put you in a place of receiving, negative feedback. And that's tough. And when you're doing that from a place of openness, then potentially that feedback comes in a bit more deeply, right? We start to feel that a bit more. What I'm talking about here is not specifically being open with others, but allowing myself to be open with myself. So I have mentioned this a number of times I've had this in so many conversations this last week. It's been kind of crazy actually how often I've had this conversation. Totally random, like totally different situations where I have, I've been talking about with someone, whether it was my mastermind group or colleagues at work or friends, about the importance of digging in and doing the deep inner growth work. And that it's the scariest work a person can do. Literally, the scariest thing a human being can do on this planet is not jumping out of an airplane. It's not being attacked by snakes. It's not running with lions. It's not any of those things. It's actually taking a deep, honest, open look at themselves. It is the scariest thing you could possibly do, which is why so many people hide from it. Now, I'm trusting that if you're listening to this podcast, that you are not one of those people. You are looking for ways or practicing ways that you can really begin to understand yourself better, heal yourself, become a better version of yourself, right? This is the thing. When we talk about change, people love to talk about this idea of like, I want to become the better version of me. But becoming the better version of me means that you need to have an honest, totally honest, completely open look at who you are now and what you are doing, what you are thinking, what you are feeling, what are you believing, right? It's taking a full 100% responsibility for everything that happens in your life. There's no more saying, well, my mother taught me this, or my father treated me this way, or my boyfriend or my girlfriend doesn't understand me, or, people don't support me, or whatever. It is no longer about the external. It is 100% about you. It's about you taking responsibility, about you being honest with yourself about the fact that you've created the life that you have right now all by yourself. And if you're, there are definitely people who can say, well, Amy, you don't understand. You don't know what happened. For example, 9/11 was a horrible event that happened. It was an event. And I don't want to belittle it in any way, shape, or form. But what I do want to point out is that an event is felt and experienced differently by every single person because it's what we make it mean to ourselves. And that's the thing. That's the hard part of the growth work. It's great to, get in the rah-rah situation of saying like, yes, I want to be a better person. Yes, I want to level up. Yes, I want to do all these things. But in order to do those things, we have to actually be very honest with ourselves and totally vulnerable to our own selves about really seeing what's been going on. So what I want to talk about today is actually around this awareness that I had that I'm like, Amy, you're actually not really being open. You're saying the words, you're kind of making the motions, but you're not really being open. And here's how I kind of understood it, because it's not the most clear. And so I'm going to do my best to try to make it clear for you. But here's how I basically understood it. I have a tendency to dig in. I'm great at researching things. I want to learn about things. I want to understand things. And so when there's something in my mind, I go after it. I take action on it fairly quickly, which sometimes is great and sometimes is not so great. So I have to be a bit more careful sometimes about, when I'm doing growth work, and my coach she's now reminding me, Amy, you need to just we're not digging into this we're trying to pull a tumor out. We're going to just slowly, sort of piece by piece, sort of get some awareness around this. We're just going to let it come into us. And what I realized is that I had the first few sessions that I had with my coach, I didn't know what to expect. And so they were tough. They were emotional. We went through some big, huge issues that I have allowed to manifest and remain in my life, that were impacting literally every area of my life, every relationship, every possible, minutia of my life. It was affecting everything. And we cleared through those fairly early on, which for a while felt like, whoa, what the heck? As those big things started to come about or started to release, then we started to look at things that how do I put this? They aren't like the drama pieces, right? We're now working, we took all the shit out of the way. So now we're working on the things that are essentially keeping me in a place of a good life, but not allowing me to move forward to a great life. I think I talked about this very briefly before, but let me just give you a real quick synopsis just in case you haven't heard it or I didn't actually talk about it. I think it's Catherine Zankina that talks about the levels of our lives, and basically that, we have sort of a mediocre life, then there's a good life, a great life, and an extraordinary life. And she shared in an email about, moving from mediocre to good is relatively easy in a way. I mean, it's not easy, but it's easier of the levels, because when you're in a mediocre life or a kind of a crappy life, there is a huge amount of pain that is inflicting on you that you're like, I'm fucking done. I want out of here. Right? So if you are in that transition place right now, then you totally understand what I'm talking about. Amy, I'm done with what's going on in my life right now. I will do whatever it takes to get out of here and to improve my life. All right? That's the first level. Easy. The second level is from good to great. This level is actually more difficult because here's why. We are creatures of comfort. We are in a good place. Is everything great? No. Is it okay? Yeah, it's okay. It's a good life, right? You may have good relationships. Maybe you're, relatively happy at your job. Is it perfect? No. Am I making the money I want to? No, but it's okay. I can pay my bills, or my body may not look or feel the way that I wanted to 100%, but it's pretty good. You're getting some time away, things like that. A good life is, I feel like a Good Life commercial, if you're familiar with the Good Life gym. A good life is a comfortable life. So moving from good to great actually requires much more effort than moving from mediocre to good. Because in a good life, there are some pain points, but they're minimal, right? You're moving into the point of being grateful for the things you have. You see the positivity around you. You see, the good that's happening around you. Could things be better? Yeah, they could be better. But the initial momentum that you need to move into the great life is not as powerful. And here's the crux of it all. When you are in a good life, there is a greater fear of losing everything as you move into a great life. So this is the situation I'm in right now. I have a good life. I'm moving into a great life. And moving into a great life requires me to be even more open and even more willing to release some things in my life. And there's a phenomenal amount of fear I hold around certain areas of my life. And I've been honest with my coach about that, and she understands. But on the other hand, I also am not willing anymore to settle. I understand that, my life is better now than it was, right? Mediocre to good. It's already doing better. But I also understand that as I continue to move up, as I move into a great life, and then eventually get ready to move into the extraordinary life, then it's going to require more of me, but it's also, I believe, going to open up my impact into the world much more. I've talked about this so many times, and I'm so excited about 2020. I'm excited what it's going to bring. I'm excited about the leveling up that I am going through, that is going to allow the impact that I have in the world to be raised, to be maximized, to be exponentially multiplied, right? That I want to have a greater impact on the world. And that's why, like, Annika's message from this week was so powerful to me. Annika's in Australia. To be in Canada and to know that someone in Australia is listening to the podcast is just like blowing my mind. I'm loving it. I'm like, okay. I'm starting to see this leveling up. I'm starting to see that the impact that I want to have is actually starting to take effect. But in order to keep moving towards that, I need to be willing to step into the discomfort of moving into a great life. And this is what I discovered. I had been talking the talk, but I had not fully been walking the walk of being open. Because being open requires discomfort. And I know that, but I had been, kind of, in a how do I say this? Like, if you think about, the 5-star tourist kind of a way where, I went on safari, or, I went camping. And camping is like this, fancy cabin with every amenity you could think about versus like throwing a tarp under a tree, right? One is definitely not the same experience as another. So I had been glamping here. We'll call it glamping. I've been glamping about openness, but I hadn't actually been like properly getting out there and doing it. I wasn't doing the hike. I wasn't cooking my breakfast. I wasn't doing anything that, that requires me, or that would actually move the marker for me. So I realized that I've been sitting in this place of, not really being open with myself, and kind of feeling, not kind of, 100% feeling a resistance to doing it. And so I asked myself a question: what would it take for me to practice more openness? And I just got this message back of, I need to lean into the discomfort. And so then I thought, okay, what would it look like to lean into the discomfort? And how can I lean in a way that I'm not creating a massive amount of overwhelm? So I messaged my coach and let her know, hey, I just had this revelation, and, I need to lean more into discomfort. And she literally said me the same thing that I was already thinking. Amy, I think it's fantastic. I love that you're like finally recognizing this. And also, don't go crazy. Don't create a massive amount of overwhelm in your life. She's seen me go through this a few times already. And, yes, lean in. Yes, look for the discomfort in a way, but don't go after it like a hungry dog is trying to, pull a steak out of a hole in the ground. That's sometimes the way that I would go after things. So the next question I asked, leaning into discomfort, where could I lean into discomfort in a way that is, and this may sound a bit confusing and a bit contradictory, but in a way that is safe, but would also create some impact? And many of the conversations I've had this week, as I mentioned, we were talking about personal growth, and I realized that with my job, I've mentioned before that I have a job. With my job, personal growth and inner growth is a huge topic at the company that I work for, which I love. It comes from the top down. Our CEO is talking about it all the time, and I think that's phenomenal. But what I realized, I think realize is the best way to say it, is that while people are talking about it, somewhat in the same way that I was talking about being open, I don't know that people are fully understanding it or really embracing it. And so as I thought about this question of, where can I lean into discomfort in a way that is safe, but that will also create an impact, I realized that something I could do is actually to step into some bravery. I had to put my brave pants on here and offer to lead a session and do it outside of work hours so that, we weren't impacting our work metrics. I lost my train of thought there for a second, but essentially that, we're not taking people away from the work they need to be doing, but to lead a training and start talking about, what is personal growth, inner growth? What does that actually look like? And to pose some difficult questions to the team, questions that I talk about on the podcast here, Things like taking responsibility for your life, understanding that you can sit there and complain about, customers, or complain about the work, or complain about the hours, or complain about the pay all you want to, but you've manifested it into your life. And let me tell you, I've told you this many times before. The first time that I had a coach that said to me, Amy, your life is the way it is because you created it, I wanted to punch him in the face. I did. I was just like, fuck you. I didn't create this. I didn't want to bring all these things into my life. I didn't want to have, the childhood that I had, or this relationship, or that experience. And they said, well, actually, you did. You manifested every single thing that exists in your life. And that was a truth that was hard to swallow. And that's why I bring it up regularly on the podcast, because if you haven't heard it yet, or you have not yet fully grasped it, it's important that you do. The first step for you to really be able to start affect change in your life, to become that, I'm giving you air quotes here, that better person that you want to become, is to accept 100% responsibility for your life. And so before I lost my nerve, before I talked myself out of it, I posted a message in one of our group channels with my colleagues, and basically said, this is what I'm going to be doing. I haven't quite picked the date yet because I'm traveling a little bit in the next couple of weeks, so I needed to be able to, make sure I could manage it all. But that was a big lean for me. It was a big lean for me to lean into the discomfort of I can talk myself out of thinking like, well, Amy, what do you know about personal growth? And who are you to teach people about it? And what gives you the right to talk to people and say that they don't understand what's going on? Right? All these doubts and fears. And I mean, I have them around my business. I'm sure you have them around your business, but these are very specific about like this particular topic. And even though I talk about, we talk about growth and stuff on this podcast a lot, actually leading a group whose faces I can see, right? It'll be in some kind of a video chat where I can actually see these people, is a little bit terrifying. But on the other hand, it also, it feels right. It feels like if I'm going to, if I want to level up, if I want to raise the impact, and I'm going to lean into discomfort to do that, then let's start here. Let's start in an area where I think people are relatively open for it, which is why, like I said, to lean in somewhere where it's still safe. So this is a safe area, right? People that I work with are similar in some ways, where we have a heart to help others, but we're also open to having conversations about all kinds of things. If you heard my conversation with Katie last week, then you'll know we sort of talked about all kinds of things. And the conversations that you didn't hear, because we had some phenomenal conversations when we were just hanging out together, Katie's level of openness with me was phenomenal. And the conversations that we could have were really fantastic, because we have this company has a phenomenal way of finding people who lean into this kind of thing. And we can start to have those conversations. So to lean into the discomfort and say, okay, Amy, if I want to lean in, I want to raise the impact in the world. This is all part and parcel of my journey to level up from a good life to a great life, and to find, in a way, I still feel a little bit like I'm kind of finding like, okay, what's this going to look like? What is Dare to Begin going to look like? What is my journey going to look like? How am I going to, most serve the world? And I'll be honest, it's tweaking just a little bit. It's changing a little from what I originally thought it would be. And I can't put into words yet. I don't even want to put into words yet, or try what that's going to look like, but I can tell you that I'm excited about the course that it's moving into. And I'm paying attention to just, being aware around where am I having natural conversations. So this week, for example, I had a number of just natural coaching conversations, which kind of blew my mind. Like, I'm just like, I didn't think that I was, really into coaching or anything. You might be rolling your eyes right now if you're listening to me and being like, Amy, that's what you do in the podcast all the time. It's possible. Maybe I do. It's a whole different level. I mean, I didn't take any training for coaching. I'm not a personal coach, right? A life coach. I haven't done any of those things. I've lived life. I've taken coaching. I, have been working on my businesses. I've grown my design business. I've been working on Dare to Begin. But to think of myself as a coach, and I'm like, And so I'm not putting a label to it right now. I'm just sort of observing what's going on. And in the observing is where I realized that I'm not really being fully open, and started to look for things. So what does this mean for you? I'm going to try to bring us home here. So I've talked a lot about, taking the responsibility, but here's what I want to touch on. I want to talk about this leaning in. And not the Sheryl Sandberg leaning in, although she has a valid point as well that, as women, if you're ladies listening to this podcast, as women, we need to definitely lean in more in those business conversations. That's more what Sheryl Sandberg talks about. But what I want to talk about is leaning into the discomfort. So it's a message that's sort of been coming to me in a variety of forms this last week or two, is that if you're comfortable, you're not actually growing. And in a way that kind of sucks. I know, James Wedmore talks about a lot about being comfortable in being uncomfortable. That when you're uncomfortable, it means that you're making moves. Things are changing, things are improving, hopefully improving. Sometimes they're going backwards. But in most cases, if you're in a positive uncomfortable, things are getting better. But it's a scary place for us to be, right? Let's be totally honest with each other. It's a scary place for us to be. It is not natural as humans for us to lean into discomfort. In fact, we are built 100% to not be leaning into discomfort. We aren't intended to thrive on change, right? We have however many, hundreds, thousands, millions of years, whatever you want to think about as the human timeline, we have a phenomenal amount of programming in our minds and in our biology that is all programmed to keep us safe and to keep us alive. Being safe and alive do not equal let's go do things that make us uncomfortable. Right? If you think about a caveman, if they were to jump off the top of a mountain because, okay, it's uncomfortable, let's lean into it, they're dead. They don't have a parachute or anything else, right? Hanging off of them. They're just dead. So we're not biologically programmed to lean into discomfort. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult for us. We have to really overcome that initial friction to get to the point of saying like, okay, I'm going to lean in here. So I would encourage you to have a look at your life, have a look at your work, your relationships, your relationship with yourself. Are you leaning into discomfort in a healthy way? So don't lean in if it's going to cause you to blow your face off, right? That's not a good thing. But lean into things that, like I said, I started asking the question, how can I lean in to discomfort in a way that is still safe and will not cause me overwhelm? Because that's one thing that I think we can do very easily is that we look for ways to challenge ourselves and then we're drowning and we're in full panic mode. That's not healthy. It's not conducive to, raising our life. It's going to do is, in fact, what it will do, and if you want to, it could be quite an interesting exercise in awareness. You're going to find out a whole bunch of stories that you have if you lean in and you're completely overwhelmed and drowning. When we panic, that's when all of our programming comes out. So rather than put ourselves in a situation that we're going to revert to old patterns that we have not yet cleared or healed or moved through, and that may not be super healthy, I would encourage you to look for ways that you can lean into discomfort in a safe way, right? Again, it's going to require some awareness and some good questioning on your part to be able to say, okay, am I leaning in to discomfort truly, or am I telling myself that I am? And when I do lean in, am I leaning in too far? Because you don't want to lean in so far that you land in overwhelm. But you do want to lean in far enough that you feel that discomfort. You feel that nervousness and like, oh, what are people going to think? Or what if I fail? Or what if it goes completely, I have a favorite phrase. Lord help me. I have a favorite phrase around the house when things are really crazy, that they just go fuck shit sideways. That's it. Like, you can't get any more sideways than fuck shit sideways. That's something Dave laughs at me all the time. God bless that man. Thank goodness that he puts up with me. So, look for ways that you can lean into that discomfort. And like I said, this episode is sponsored by the Profit Power Pack. If one of the ways that you're getting ready to lean in is to find a way to both improve your business and increase the results for your clients, I highly recommend you check out the Profit Power Pack. You can find it at daretobegin.net /profit. It's a phenomenal price right now. It likely will not stay at that price for very long. So I highly encourage you, if you're thinking about it, sign up for it now so you can get all of the fantastic information at the delightful price that it's at right now. I trust that this episode has been really useful for you and has had some deep value for you. And I wish you a phenomenal rest of the week. Thank you so much for listening. As I mentioned earlier on, if you want to reach out to me, you can message me directly on Instagram. I Dare to Begin is my Instagram handle, or you can always email me, amy@daretobegin.net. That will come to me as well. I wish you a phenomenal week. I'm super excited to see you next week, and I'm behind you 100% of the way as you lean in to your discomfort. Bye for now. Are you tired of figuring it out all on your own? Of sitting in overwhelm, knowing that you're not moving forward, but having no idea where or how to start? Are you ready to learn effective, profit-supporting strategies for your business so that you can finally earn the money you desire and step into the freedom that you're working so hard to create? If so, I invite you to join me inside the Launchpad. You'll get instant access to free training designed to meet you where you are right now and propel you forward toward the dream that you hold in your mind. It's time to make a powerful move toward your future. Time to step up and serve the people who desperately need your help. Let's not keep them waiting any longer. Today is the day. Join the Launchpad now. Just go to daretobegin.net/the Launchpad and sign up. Your success is inevitable. Now, let's launch it.